This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express Monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is the show for the week of October 21st, 2024. And usually we have some kind of show intro, but Phil, you put a whole big thing on here that was on Disney Plus that I was not aware of. So instead of lying or acting my way through it, who are you congratulating?
I just thought I'd put in there something to congratulate all the new entrants to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I was paying extra attention, or usually I don't always pay attention, but I wanted to make sure to watch it this year because one of my favorite bands, the Dave Matthews Band, was inducted. Probably the band I've seen the most in concert and stuff. But also I found it interesting that the ceremony was streamed live and is now available in rewatch on Disney Plus. And I just thought it was kind of interesting content for Disney Plus. It's not anything Disney related. There's no like Disney people connected to it. And so it got kind of, even when I was telling people, they were like, why is it on Disney Plus? So I don't know. I thought it was kind of interesting. I didn't know if you thought having stuff like this makes sense for Disney. Does it draw in more people? Are they going to get more subscribers by having something like this? Or is it sort of a nothing burger type thing and just exists?
I mean, on the surface level, it's a nothing burger, right? It's like an interesting blip. For it to draw people in, they consistently have to have like different kind of content to be like, oh, it's this, and then it's this, and then it's like it has to build up to where this is an expectation for like different things. But if this is it, and then there's nothing different.
Yeah, I don't know if they're trying to get known as like a place for me, because I know they had like a Taylor Swift thing, and they had, I think it was Elton John or somebody. So I don't know if they're trying to mix in like, if you like live music type thing, we're the streaming service for that. I don't know, but
I don't know. I mean, that's a good idea to have a streaming service for that, but like I don't know if it belongs on Disney Plus. It's kind of weird, but
yeah. Anyway, I thought it was interesting, and like I said, it was something I watched on Disney Plus, so I thought I'd mention it.
So congrats to the Dave Matthews Band. So on to the show. This week we have news, lots of news. Compared to last week, we talked about like all the construction being started and being pushed back and speculation on that. This week we got a lot of announcements and a lot of stuff that kind of sparked maybe confusion or frustration on social media. But we'll get to that later. But first, just want to remind everybody about our Discord server. Make sure you join in the conversation. A lot of people have been in the last couple of weeks. So we really appreciate that engagement over there with our DBC engagement questions. They're actually working. We're engaging people. And then, of course, our social media platforms at the DBC Pod, wherever you might find that. Okay, so on to the first thing, Phil, that's non-Disney related. So we put that first. I don't know why, but there we go. It is interesting because it's going to be taking place next year. We have Epic Universe news, and quite a bit of it, Phil. So why don't you lead the way there?
Yeah, it was, I guess, kind of rumored or speculated that there would be some news coming out, and then they kind of teased something for October 17th. And what it was is they announced the official opening date to the public of Epic Universe. I know in the past we had some rumors that maybe there were some delays with it, or it would only open some of the lands or something like that, but at least according to this, the park will fully open to the public on May 22nd, 2025, so Memorial Day weekend. They did announce that there will be a couple months or at least weeks of previews for pass holders and different groups and stuff like that. As suspected, the only tickets that will initially be available, they will actually go on sale on October 22nd. So by the time you're listening to this, they're probably on sale. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we'll probably know more once this happens. But the initial round will be, you have to buy a ticket package of 3, 4, or 5 days, of which one of those days can be for Epic Universe. The others have to be for the other 2 parks. And I believe on October 24th, they will start selling individual days just for Epic for Universal Pass holders. So that is something that I know we have a number of Universal Pass holders on our Discord, and they were kind of frustrated where, well, like, what's the point of being a pass holder if I still have to buy, a 4-day ticket to get into the other parks if I want 1 day at Epic? But it does seem like pretty early on, pass holders will be able to get a single day ticket. And they did also announce that other ticket options will be coming for the general public before the park opens. They're just doing this as for the, kind of the diehard fans, the people that need to be there opening day, opening month,
Sure.
whatever. This is the way that you're going to have to do it if you want to be kind of in that first round of people. So I don't know if you had any initial reactions or anything to this, or what your excitement level, I guess, is for Epic Universe in general.
I mean, like, I'm excited for it only because it's a brand new theme park. A lot of talented people are working on there. My first thought was not as far as buying a 3, 4, or 5 day ticket. That seems kind of, I guess, normal for that. I'm sure single day tickets will go on sale later in the year, but I think they're trying to gauge interest. So we'll see on that. My one line of thinking is I've got a whole family 9-night, 10-day Disney World trip at the end of July. Do I somehow like modify my trip to take in less tickets and hop over to Epic Universe?
Yeah.
Whatever. So I don't know if I want to sacrifice 3 whole park days to do that, even though that might be very interesting. So something to consider. The other thing is, do I shorten my hotel stay and tackle on some time at the Helios? Because your next bullet point on this is the pricing. So why don't you go over that?
Yeah, so Helios Hotel. So for people who don't know, at Epic Universe, there are 3 hotels that are sort of in that part of the plot of land that Universal has there, which is sort of a little bit of ways from the other parks and stuff. 2 what they're calling, kind of more value resorts, which are Stella Luna and Stella Nova. And then what people were thinking might be like the flagship hotel for all of Universal Orlando, called Helios, which is actually in the park. Really, it's at the back end of the park, but if you're in the park, you're going to be seeing this hotel. It's more in the park than, I guess, anything the closest Disney would have, I guess, is Grand Californian over at California Adventure. But it looks like a high-end resort with lots of restaurants and bars and stuff like that. So people were really kind of curious, and I think thinking pricing was going to be quite high for this.
Yeah, maybe not.
But maybe not, as Universal posted kind of a teaser thing for it, saying rooms will start at $293. Now, this is per night based on a 4-night stay, and we'll have to see what actuals are. But other hotels that they have, they're starting from at least $100 more than that. I think everybody thought Helios was the one that was going to start $100 more than those, not $100 less. So I mean, you're talking about the price of a moderate, even
a cheap
sometimes
moderate. I mean,
like at Disney. So it's kind of crazy.
I mean, rack rate for CBR is in the high 3s, and that's about $100. This is $100 less than Caribbean Beach. Not taking into account any kind of room discounts that you might have. So that's pretty good. And then the value hotels, the Terra Luna, and what was the other one?
Terra Nova.
Stella Nova. Stella Nova, Terra Luna. Both of them are $134 a night. Now, these are not particularly fancy resorts. I mean, they're what, like a 7-ish story, 8-story kind of hotel, big and long, and there's really cool pools or sketchwork of a lot of cool pools, that sort of thing. But it's not like a Disney resort where you're on.
It's not super immersive or anything like that, but it does have good theming and lobby bars and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a nice regular hotel.
But I mean, it's slightly cheaper or comparable to an All-Star, and it looks 1,000 times better than the All-Star resorts, right? So let's get that clear. Again, not a crazy amazing resort experience, but probably an amazingly good hotel experience.
Yeah,
if that differentiation makes sense. So going back to my original question, do I cut short? I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, like what kind of room types are available. Can you sleep 6? Can you sleep
I know
5?
in the Terra Nova and Stella Luna, those only have rooms that sleep up to 4. Because I remember I was looking at it at one point where I was like, oh, could this even be like our home base type thing for a Disney trip, because they're so cheap and for new hotels, but they only have rooms that sleep up to 4 at those. I'm not sure about Helios though.
Well, here's my line of thinking. Like, if you go to the Helios, it's $293 a night. If I just get 2 rooms, that's basically the same price as an Art of Animation family suite. And probably a lot more room and better, accommodations. And you're in the park, right? You're in the park. Now, it says starting from $293,
exactly,
right? So there's going to be more expensive rooms, and those are probably all the rooms on the one side of the hotel that are facing the park are probably a lot more expensive than the ones that are facing the parking lot in the back, I would imagine, or maybe the pool, whatever's back there. So that's interesting. But yeah, so that those are the Universal opening dates. Hotel prices are really, really good. The ticket books are like, I mean, nothing outrageous. A couple $110 per ticket for 3. So I think what are the packages for like a 3-day stays, like $300 something.
Yeah, about $350 or so, depending on the they do the date based pricing and stuff too. And I'm sure opening day and stuff's going to be more, but yeah, it's around $350 for the 3-day ticket. And we'll have to see. We know they said you won't need to make park reservations. However, you're buying dated tickets, so if it's for a 3-day set, that sort of thing. So they have an idea of like what days you'll be there. So we'll have to see the more details about that. One thing I did want to note is the Helios. One thing probably bringing the price down is you do not get the express pass included when you stay there. That's something that's unique to the 3 Loews hotels. And also speaking of express pass, they haven't announced it for Epic Universe. We know they have like the lines, the separate queues and stuff like that for it. So it is expected to happen at some point. And they said we will hear more before the park opens. But if you're there opening day, don't expect express pass to be an option.
Yes. So the only other thing you had, the other dark.
Yeah, they just mentioned like one of the areas of the park that I'm definitely the most interested in is the dark universe, which is where they have all the classic monsters, Dracula, werewolf, stuff like that. But they announced that they're going to be using jump scares and scare actor type people in the queues in that area. So I think it's going to be really interesting because, obviously you have some of the lands like Nintendo Land and stuff that are geared a little bit more towards kids, but is that area going to be where people don't even take their kids or anything like that if they're really gearing it to be a little scary? But again, it'll be interesting to see how that goes over when Disney's planning their Villains Land, saying, hey, they kind of went all in on this sort of pretty scary area and people seem to love it. Does Disney make theirs a little scary? Do they counter program? I don't know. I'm kind of fascinated to see how that land goes over.
I mean, this is basically going to be Universal's first quote unquote real theme park that's been built with all the lessons learned from Islands of Adventure or Studios. And I'm really psyched because I think they brought in a lot of good talent.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I know them individually, but I know that, a lot of them come from Walt Disney Imagineering. And if you listen to the Disney Dish with Len Testa and Jim Hill today, they kind of mentioned some technology that they were using, like in a closed environment that's incredibly, they didn't say what it was or what it was for, but they just said there's a lot of really cool effects, amazing effects, I think they said. So I'm really interested in seeing that. Now, my question, Phil, is you have now shifted a lot of your vacationing during the summer. Are you now eyeing a stay here next summer with some of this?
We'll have to see. I'm still like up in the air on what we're going to do next year. We know we have 1 week at Cape Cod planned. Like that's going to be our family week and stuff. I'm still looking into other options. I'm also looking into when they announce when Destination D23 is going to be. If those dates work, I mean, perfect case scenario would be that I could do Destination D23 and then maybe tack on a day or 2 before or after and go check out Epic Universe while I'm down there.
I think I want. I don't know what you're doing with your family or not, but like I'd like to do maybe a solo trip down for D23 this year or Destination D23.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if anyone of my, depending on the dates, even if they could with school or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking is I might do a solo trip down for there, and then while I'm down there, try to add on a day.
Why not?
Typical options.
Hopefully by that time we can buy a single.
That's
ticket.
kind of what my hope, because I'm assuming Destination will be at least in August, if not September. So hopefully by then there's single day tickets available and stuff. But we'll see. It's exciting though to I think on that podcast they mentioned like it's the first time in 10 years that a new theme park is open at least, right? So it's just exciting for everybody in the community, even if you're not a Universal person, just a new theme park in the area and what it means is exciting.
100%. So you almost had an excellent segue when not talking about the Express Pass not existing for Epic Universe, because there is now a Premier Pass or Express Pass for Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So once you go over some of the details of this launch.
Yeah, so this was something that was rumored before. I think Blog Mickey was the one who had it initially. But it's now confirmed. Disney has announced they will be launching Lightning Lane Premier Pass, which will work alongside multi-pass and single pass. It starts October 23rd at Disneyland and October 30th at Walt Disney World. And what it does is it will grant the user who has this access to all the Lightning Lane attractions, including the single pass ones, at one time per day, anytime they want. They don't have to make a return reservation. You just show up, scan your Magic Band or ticket or whatever, and you can go into the Lightning Lane. So it functions pretty similar to how the single-use Express Pass at Universal works. It won't be provided to you if you stay at a deluxe resort like happens at Universal. In fact, you have to, for Walt Disney World, you have to be staying at a deluxe resort just to have the opportunity to buy it.
Yes.
At Disneyland, it's a little different. Anybody is able to buy it if they want. But yeah, at Walt Disney World, you have to first be staying at a deluxe resort. So you're already paying a premium to stay there. And then you have to opt to buy this. You can only buy, I mean, I can't imagine some people would do this, but you can only buy one per day. You can't buy it for for Walt Disney World. It is only works at one park, unlike say a VIP tour that you can go to all the parks. And similarly, but at Disneyland, it works at both parks. So I don't know why they always make it more confusing and have different rules for each coast and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, there's different rules for every single global park, right? So, I mean, that's, to me, I don't think there's any confusion when you go into different parks. They can have different rules for different parks, because all parks are run differently. It's just that there's a lot of options at Disney World now. Which is interesting. So
it's interesting that, a lot of people that don't want to do the pre-booking and just want the simplicity of like Express Pass have been looking forward to this. But now that it's out, there's obviously also a lot of complaining, specifically about the pricing of it. Just to give you,
there's a lot of raging on this. Now, this is a massive topic, and I don't want to rush through this. Mm-hmm. So we didn't really talk about how we're going to structure this, but we do have an order in our show notes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should give what the prices are, compare them to the existing VIP tour and existing single pass and multi-pass, and then like what we have in the show notes, go over like the pros and cons and what people are thinking about, and like some misconceptions, I suppose, that I've seen quite a bit. So you're about to go in on cost. Let's just stick with Disney World as we get into it. But I did some looking around for like what the other parks around the world also do.
So I think going forward, our focus will be at Disney World. At Disneyland, it is $400 a day. Like I said, that gets you access to both parks. But
that's actually a pretty good value, I think. But we're not talking about Disney. I'm sorry.
At Disney World, it varies by park and obviously by day. So at Animal Kingdom, it will range between $129 and $199 per person. Epcot between $169 and $249. Hollywood Studios between $269 and $349. And then the Magic Kingdom, it will vary between $329 and $449. And of course, tax is added on that as well. So if you're going with your family of four during a popular time and you want to, buy this for Magic Kingdom, you're looking about $1,800 for your family of four to opt for this.
Yep. And I think, and just to kind of compare this, a lot of the global parks have had products like this for quite some time. I forgot how the Disneyland Premier, was it not Premier Pass? It was there was a pass out in Disneyland before all this stuff happened that you could buy, I believe also. Was it a Maxi Pass? I think it was called.
Well, they had Max Pass, but that was more like Fast Pass or Genie Plus or whatever, but they had Max Pass, yep.
So in any case, if you're going to Disneyland Paris, they do have the Premier Access Pass. And that's roughly between $100 and $200. At the Hong Kong Disneyland, they have basically you can buy a book of 5 or a book of 8 attractions, and those range about $30 to $68. In Shanghai Disneyland, the Premier Access packages, you could buy them in sets of 3, 6, or 8. And the range from like $55 to $160 per person, to kind of give you an idea. So I think a lot of people did math, Phil, and that roughly works out to be like $20-ish, low $20 per ride. Just doing like simple math, not like grading on e-ticket versus B ticket or whatever. But I think more importantly, like so you're getting access to every single Lightning Lane once per day, only at a single park. The only thing that we can compare it to at Disney World is a VIP tour. So how much do those cost, Phil?
Yeah. So, obviously on the low end, the cheaper things is the Lightning Lane multi-pass or single pass, which we know varies between, say, $17 and $30, depending on the park. But obviously that you only get to pre-book 3 and you have your return slots and you don't know how many rides you'll get on and that sort of thing. And it's a little bit more taxing. Tour is sort of at the other end, where you have a customized guide that helps you get through, and you could go to all 4 parks if you want, and they grant you sort of, backstage to transport you and stuff. So there's obviously a lot of other perks.
Yeah, I mean, the VIP tour, if you don't know what it is, people should go check one out. There's plenty of videos out there to kind of explain it and showcase it. But they're like basically a butler for you for a day. They'll like hold your stroller or do like rider swap with you or go grab food. Like they are excellent, tour guests or tour,
and they obviously
hosts,
and they have a lot of knowledge of the parks.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, which big difference, is that they bring you to the front of the line. It's not just getting you access to the lightning lane. It's a very elevated luxury product and that sort of thing, and it's obviously priced that way. So at Walt Disney World, it's between $450 and $900 per hour, minimum of 7 hours, maximum of 10 hours. Now that is per tour, whether you have one person or up to 10 people. If you have more than 10, then you have to pay for a second one. But obviously, the more people you have in it and you're splitting it that way, it can be a little bit more affordable. But so I said, okay, at Walt Disney World, the midpoint of that is about $675 an hour. So that's around $4,725 total. If you have 10 people, that comes down to $472 per person. So the midpoint of Premier Pass or Lightning Lane Premier Pass at Magic Kingdom is around $389. So if you have 10 people, it's not a huge jump up per person to go to a VIP tour. Obviously, if you only have, 2 people or 4 people or something like that, it's going to be a lot cheaper.
Thousands.
And obviously there's other perks that go along with it. So just kind of put that into context. If you're a family of 4, 5, 6, whatever, if you wanted to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, you have that VIP tour. On the low end, you had the regular Lightning Lane multipass. This kind of fits in between for people who are maybe, we have disposable income, we just want convenience, we don't want to think about things, we have money, available to us, and this is something that appeals to us. We're willing to do it. And like everything else, there's probably going to be some trade-offs and stuff like that. Now, the only other thing I wanted to add, as you mentioned, to even be eligible to buy this, you have to be staying at a deluxe resort. And Disney said, the intention is that a very small number of these are sold every day. Now, we'll actually find out if that's true or not, but that's the intention, that this isn't something, and that's why it's not replacing multi-pass or single pass. This is something that can fit alongside, and at least in Disney's expectation, not drastically interrupt the operations for everybody else.
So my initial reaction to this is kind of like a shrugging of my shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this affects nobody. This just gives options to other people. I think the cost is fine because at this point, most people can either afford, or it's not much more of a major bump in cash to buy like a multi-pass, right? Even a hopping multi-pass if you've got hoppers. A lot of people then would say that this eats into the VIP crowd, or like how many people they're getting VIP. It's cannibalizing that marketplace. I disagree. Just as you just said, VIP pass is significantly more expensive.
Yep.
It only gets cheaper with more people. And how many people have that many, like 10 people, like to bring down the cost, right? You might have friend groups that are doing it and stuff like that, but like the typical family is not going to have 10 people with them.
Yeah.
So you're probably working at maybe like 4 to 8 people potentially, which is like extended family visits, that type of thing. So this fits that niche right there. Now, there's also other things that people don't consider. When you're on a VIP tour, you're either traveling with a large group or you have a host that's just kind of hanging out with your family. I don't know if I would want to tour Disney World with like somebody I just met, right?
Yep.
Sometimes Disney World's a very intimate experience. Granted, this is only for one day. Maybe this is the day you kind of do some things, but sometimes if it's like 2 or 3 people, that might be awkward for some or something else. There's a lot of, I tend to be introverted from time to time. Like let me just be with my family. I don't want to have to put on a show for other people. So this is the price point for this. Now, just going through some of these prices, Animal Kingdom, totally not worth that cost of that whatsoever. You could do your own VIP tour and be done in a couple hours. It is definitely not worth the money of it. Epcot, probably not. I mean, it might be worth it around the $150 mark at that point, I think. if
Someone
you
on
have-
our Discord mentioned they actually thought the Epcot one might be more appealing to them, just in the extent that because of how spread out Epcot is, you don't want to have to worry about sort of be running back and forth
Zipping
between
across, yep.
between like return times and stuff like that. That it's and how you kind of want to just stroll around the countries and stuff like that. So something that has less planning to it kind of fits Epcot. So again, if you do the per ride cost, maybe it's not the most economical, but it sort of fits the touring style of that park.
Well, I agree, because that brings us to like Hollywood Studios in Magic Kingdom. Now, I'm going to be going one of the first days that this is available, and I said to myself, is it worth my wife and I to spend almost $900 or over $900? Well, actually, I don't. Who knows how much it's going to cost me?
We don't know
so
what
let's
it's
call
gonna
it
be
$400, right?
Yeah.
$400, $800 plus tax. And I'm like, you know what? It's too much. I mean, we could afford it, but I also don't. I'm not. Don't make that much money where I'm like $800.
It's still something.
it's a lot of money, right? An $800 purchase requires thought. It's not like it's not pocket change for me, by any means. So, but the higher your income bracket, which is the target group, this is not like Disney's not marketing this to people that are like have to save to go on their Disney World trip, right?
Yeah.
They're marketing to the people that might consider a VIP tour for their immediate family, but something that's less expensive, but also, once you get to that price point, you're not paying for value. Like a lot of people are spending it's like $22 a ride. What's the value? Disney's nickel and diming, all this whole conversation, which is a valid conversation for multi-pass and everything else. But once you get to the price point where this is something that you would seriously consider, you're not calculating the cost per ride or per hour at the park. You make enough money where now convenience in time has a higher value than extra dollars.
Yep.
So if you're a person that has, you're a, I don't know, I'm not putting a number on it, but like a good chunk into the six-figure territory, dropping an extra $800 for you and your spouse or a friend or two or three other people, you're spending an extra $1,000 might not be the biggest thing in the world to you, but then you save all the headache of having to learn all the rules for multipass, having to schedule it, having to track it, having to constantly do all that stuff. So how many times have we said on this show that's the worst part of Genie Plus when it was up?
Mm-hmm.
It's the live project management
Yep.
of the whole thing. So there's value to it. And I said this on one of the message boards. I probably said it on Discord too. It's very similar to the discussion of the dining plan of, you don't save money on the dining plan, but you know what? You save the prepay. It's the all-inclusive feel. So it's the same exact mentality, just on a higher price point with it. What was your initial reaction, Phil, with all this when you saw it?
It was kind of similar to that. I think it was, since we kind of knew it was coming, is it interesting to see it. I think, like you said, it's targeting people that were maybe already considering a VIP or maybe just below that level, but like have the available cash to do it. It's probably only a couple people. Somebody on our Discord, Joe C, commented that that he's really loving the idea for this, and he mentioned that his wife and they're 2-income household, no kids, so they have maybe some more disposable income than other families have, but is slightly below being able to afford VIP tours. But they like how this would make it much more relaxing trip, that they could just get in the line whenever they want. They don't have to feel like they're rushing through meals to make return times and stuff. And that his wife really doesn't like the planning aspect. So this is something that appeals to them, and they're able to afford it. And I think there is that segment of the population that this fits. I guess the only other thing I reacted to was how Disney was very explicit in saying we are only selling a very small number of these. And that is what I would expect. And I guess the small part of me says, well, let's see if that's actually true. Or, sometimes Disney underestimates the demand from their fan base. So we'll have to see what the reality is.
Let's save the slippery slope type arguments because of the reaction part. One other thing I want to say before we get to the reactions that we've read and some of the frustration I've had with the mentality of some of Disney fandom is going back to Joe C's point, right? He's going on a trip. It's just him and his wife, and they're going to enjoy the time. And they have money to kind of spend more money for a better experience, right? For them. Compare that to my trip next year, right? I've got 3 kids. We're getting, I forget, it was either a 6 or 7 day ticket hopper. If I had left 2 of my kids at home and didn't buy tickets for them, that would easily afford a express pass for at least one day for the rest of the party. Or if we were to have no kids and it was just the two of us, the amount of money that we could afford to bring our family of 5 with us, we could easily afford a couple days of this press pass in lieu of having children and feeding them and buying tickets for them, right? So you think to yourself, okay, who would want to do this? Well, if you and your spouse and you have 2 or 3 kids and you regularly go to Disney World once a year, once every other year, the cost of the tickets could be, if they can afford to bring 3 kids in tickets, then two people without kids can afford this product if that's something that interests them, right? So it's not unaffordable, it's just really expensive, and it's you got to do your own value assessment. But my point of this whole extra thing is basically that people are already affording that much to do stuff in the parks. It just, all that money goes to having kids, right? So dual income families that are successful can, this is not really out of the reach. And I suspect that is a target audience for something like this, whether it's wealthier people with families or dual income folks that are coming down and, they're not going to spend $6,000 on a VIP tour, but they might spend an extra $900 to get all the rides done in Magic Kingdom without fretting about it.
Exactly. Yep.
So here we are.
The only other thing I'd say with the reaction and stuff like that is that maybe I agree with is in a vacuum.
Let's preface this section, right?
Yeah.
We're going to talk about reactions, right?
Okay.
So I want to frame it as these are things that we've seen online, that we've read about, and we either agreed with or disagreed with, and kind of went down a rabbit hole of like, everybody's wrong on the internet and I'm right and I have to prove it type of things. So what was the first reaction that stood out to you that wasn't your own reaction?
I think just people just saying, Disney's lost their mind. It's only catering to the rich and it's not for middle-class families. It's not for me anymore. This is just another sign of that.
Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
So, and this is where I think I agree with it in the sentiment of this is just another thing they've announced that seems to be more money that they're asking for people to pay. I think this item in a vacuum, and that's why I think you have to separate this from every other thing they've kind of done, because it's really going after that VIP group. It's not going after the average guest, whereas things like, taking away Magical Express, just park ticket going up, the charging for Fast Pass now, those are all impacting the average guest. This is not impacting the average guest, but people were reacting to it as if it was going to impact them, that now they have to pay all this money, or that this is the only thing Disney cares about. They're only caring about the uber rich people. They don't care about me.
Correct. I mean, if we're going to have we've already had the conversation, is Disney outpricing the average guest? Right. And all those points you just brought up are extremely valid. I think people start trying to lump in different things together just to prove that Disney's out to get you money. Disney's always going to offer really expensive options for people, whether it's expensive dinners, like, they just reopened Victoria and Albert's a couple of years ago. They're only catering to the rich for $1,000 meal. Or, the fancy diamond encrusted Cinderella's castle that you see like behind a glass case, or like $500 Lego sets at Disney Springs, or there's any number of really expensive items that average people cannot afford because they have ridiculous price tags attached to them. I think this is just one more thing. The other argument that I've seen is Disney is just making it more and more complex to go there. And that's tangential on people getting offended by the costs because this is something that they need to enjoy the parks. Yep. So I've got 2 points to that, Phil, and let me know if you disagree with me at all. So on the side that it's getting more complicated, first of all, you've already got the single pass and the multi-pass. I think those are somewhat complicated already. But I think Disney is slowly making it easier with just by renaming them. I think it makes it
just over time as people get used to it and stuff. Sure.
Adding this other type of pass on top of it, first of all, you won't even see it if you're not staying at a deluxe resort. And if you're staying at a deluxe resort, more likely than not, you're either a return guest and can kind of figure this out, or you probably have a travel agent that's going to be able to help you with this. And then on the part where, when lightning lanes started getting more expensive, people are like, well, I don't want to, it's not worth it at Animal Kingdom, and I can't go. And if I can't get this, I'm not going to enjoy my time, that sort of thing. I always come back and say, and I recall your story 2 years ago when you were at the Magic Kingdom. You did not buy Genie Plus,
Yep.
and you're able to do everything in that part. I mean, you were there all day, right?
Right.
It was a long day, but you managed to get everything done that you wanted to get done. And more people than not, like, I need to spend, like these say, like, the ticket costs $120, but it's really $150 because I have to buy the multi-pass to go with it. I'm like, and I always say, like, you don't need to buy it. Right.
Yeah.
It makes it more convenient. It makes it easier on your life because you skip some lines and you've got to do some extra work, but you skip lines, but you don't need it. And when you add it on this, people are saying, well, this is ridiculous. Disney expects me to buy this. I'm like, Disney's not expecting you to buy this at all. Like, if you don't like the cost, Disney's not expecting you to buy it whatsoever. And I get a little frustrated when people think that they're the center of the universe and Disney's always creating products that are just for them. And, we were talking about, I don't know, like, the more things that Disney adds that are at higher price points, when people can start slipping down the affordability rungs, get more and more offended when there's certain things that they can't afford, where you thought that maybe if this was 30 years ago, I could have easily afford it, but Disney's
Right.
not for me anymore. So it's an unfortunate way of thinking. But again, I don't think Disney's doing it to try to gouge people. They're saying, if you want to spend the money, here it is, but you don't need it, in my opinion. Is there something wrong in that line of thinking, Phil, or are you with me on that one?
I'm with you again. Like, if you're thinking about this in a vacuum, like I said, if you're not staying at a deluxe resort, you won't even see this as an option in my Disney experience. Like, it won't. You can't even buy it if you wanted to. And so I really don't think this is something that impacts people. I do kind of get the sentiment of, okay, they're pulling back, benefits to the guest, and the experience for the average guest has gone down, and what they are adding is only for these uber rich people, not for me. If they were adding this and then at the same time said, oh, and Magical Express is coming back, or something like that, I think it'd be a lot easier to take. But sometimes it feels like the only new things they're introducing are these high end things. So I can understand that sentiment of, like,
Fair.
just getting annoyed by that, but I do think sometimes people take it too much, like, oh, here's another thing I can't afford. It's like, well, no, this isn't for you. It's just like a VIP tour. You could never afford a VIP tour before either, so it doesn't really impact you. So
what were some of the other reactions that you saw? I know there were a lot of slippery slope. If Disney does this now, then they're definitely going to do this thing that they never talked about at a later date.
Yeah, I mean, I probably played into that a little bit with more of just, as long as it does stay for a very small number of people, that it doesn't interrupt the experience of the average guest, then I have no issue. But Disney has underestimated the demand of guests in the past. So do they start cranking it up and start selling more of these? Do they, how does it impact the slots and the fast pass, in the lightning lanes and stuff like that?
I mean, that's a good thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, if this is more widely, let's say it's, because I don't think it's going to impact the lightning lanes at all, just because they're going to limit the amount of it just to see what the impact is in the parks, and B, it's only for a certain amount of guests that are staying at deluxe resorts, because that filters out a lot of people. However, let's say right now they open this up to anybody that wants to get it can get it. Do you still think it has an impact in the parks right now?
I think it could potentially, because I could see some people saying, well, now I'll stay off property, or I'll stay at a lower level resort and use those savings to pay for this because this improves my vacation. So I think in that scenario, it would at least have the potential to impact the average guest more often.
How would you, in what way? I'm just like, go through your thought process.
Yeah, just that they're selling more of these, and now you have more people that are just scanning into all the lightning lanes. There's less available slots for the people that have lightning lane multiple pass. So now it's harder for me to use that product. Or they increase the number of slots they're giving to the lightning lane, and now it makes the standby lines even longer. So it kind of gets back to the whole, it feels like they reduced the number of people in the lightning lane by the updates to the rules for, like, the DAS product. And now is this just going to insert all those people again, except now it's people that are paying for this privilege or not. But with the current one, the way it is now, it's going to be a very small number. So you're not going to see that impact.
Well, let me ask you this: is there enough people at this price point where you would see a marginal increase in Lightning Lane? Because I would imagine the vast majority of people that are purchasing this would have purchased multi-pass and some single passes already.
Yeah.
The only difference is instead of going on, let's say, 3 or 4 rides and then maybe stopping working the system, or they just got sold out, they didn't know how to use it, that sort of thing. So they have ability to go on all the extra rides and stuff like that. Is there that many extra people that would clog up the lane lanes significantly? Because again, this is a higher price point.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking mostly in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So I don't know. So like I put in the show notes, I had done a spreadsheet work to kind of figure out what the potential impact could be.
Yes, let's go over that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to read off the numbers. I can tweet it out later if people are interested in seeing this. But I basically tried to say, how many people are in the parks? How many people are currently buying Lightning Lane Multipass? How many slots on average are they using in a day? And I came up with a rough estimate. There's tons of assumptions in here, but let's, I said the average guest that has Multipass is getting 3.6 uses a day. So somewhere between 3 to 4 uses a day, which probably makes sense. In that ballpark. Disney said you got 2 to 3 with Genie Plus. This is probably a little more people because you get the 3 pre-books and stuff like that. So let's just say that's in the ballpark for what it is. I then say after the launch of Premier Pass, I'm guessing only they would sell it to 2% of guests, which I know 2% sounds low, but that's still almost 1,000 people that would buy this on an average day in Magic Kingdom, which seems like a good amount of people to spend this much money, right?
That could be like 250 families or like 200 families and, like 100 couples or so.
Yeah. So if 2% use it, again, it's only eligible to people that's staying at deluxe resorts. So you're already like in a very small pool of people that are eligible to it. And those people that are at Magic Kingdom that day and elect to use it. I said about half of those would have gotten multipass anyway. But, long story short, I said it would reduce the number of guests for people that had multipass from 3.6 uses to 3.5. So there's virtually no impact on that. Mm-hmm. Now, if instead of 2%, it's 5% or 10% or whatever, like obviously that's going to have a much bigger impact. But I really don't see those scenarios, especially when it's only limited to deluxe guests.
I mean, I think 1,000 guests is a good number right off the bat. I mean, obviously that can increase. And I think the percentage of Lightning Lane purchases would have bought the multipass at 50%. I think that's rather low. I think it'd be higher. But again,
I didn't know what it'd be.
Right?
Like you said, some people might buy it. Maybe some people were not buying VIP tours and doing this instead. Some people maybe I don't want to deal with the multipass, but this is simple. So again, maybe that's conservative. I don't know. But I said 50% just to say some portion of that are now not buying multipass.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think a lot of people are saying, "What if it's available to everybody?" I mean, that's fine. I think Disney is very carefully adjusting the quantities of available for multipass, and I think this will be the same thing. And I think we don't know how many slots are available per attraction, right? There's only guesses.
Yeah.
And I think Disney's constantly tweaking those things, especially during like a lot of the attractions have different drop times throughout the day too. So I think that's kind of a dynamic type of thing.
Yep.
So again, the only way that this gets even higher usage is if they reduce the cost of this. And Disney, they're never going to reduce the cost of anything. And let me ask you this question here, Phil. Do you think that if there's not a large adaption rate to this, and they're like, okay, we know that we could increase the amount of Premier Passes we offer, that we could then potentially give this away as a perk for deluxe guests for free?
I would be surprised because there's just so many deluxe resorts and DVC and stuff like that it's just a lot to give this away.
Well, let me ask you this. So what number would you like to use for the average rack rate for a deluxe resort? Just like a regular studio or something else. You want to say like $650?
Yeah, I was going to say around there, $700.
Let's use $700. So what is the average discounted rate per night for a deluxe? About 30%?
Yeah.
So that's about $210 per night. So let's say your average stay is 5 nights. That's $1,000. Yep. If you're going to offer a Premier Pass for a family of 4 for each occupant on there, you're looking at $1,600, right? So you're about maybe $400
for one day. Yeah, for one day.
Right, one day, right?
Yeah.
You get one day for one of your park days. You get this pass for free, but you have to pay rack rate. That has a value, assuming you use it at Magic Kingdom, right?
Yep.
You might say only available at this park or this park, right? To tweak things. Disney's losing $400 versus $1,200 on a discounted room rate. It's kind of in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
Disney's getting desperate to fill deluxe rooms at rack rates. This might be a way to entice that as well, especially if they find out, like, if every person at a deluxe resort had it, because they could extrapolate that data.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I guess I could see it as, like you said, a promotion for something like that. And it's
Mhm.
only available on certain days and they only have so many rooms that they're going to sell that have the perk attached to it and stuff like that. There could definitely be a way to do it. I could see it as also something, maybe they give it to people that buy into DVC or something like that. I could see it as some sort of perk that they give out for certain things.
The only reason why I think that might be the case, and obviously this is me just spitballing and guessing right now, is because with Epic Universe coming next year, right? And there's going to be a lot of comparisons between Universal and Disney, just in general, right?
Oh, that's
Not
a
just
fair
like
point.
Epic,
Yeah.
right? Universal gets this perk, Disney does not offer this perk, so maybe they start offering it, right? So that's the only way I'm thinking. Like, maybe if Disney wants to combat, like, stay 3 nights at Disney World on your way to remember we talked about this a couple months ago, right? Like, Disney, I don't think Disney's going to be able to compete with Universal next year, just as far as interest and eyeballs and bodies going there. But I think Disney would be smart to try to siphon off a night or two from a 7-day trip at Universal. So, instead of going to Universal for 6 nights, go for 4 nights and spend two nights at Walt Disney World.
Yeah,
Why?
I mean,
if you stay here, that's a way of doing it, right?
Yeah, maybe they could push it to certain travel agents or something like that and say, hey, if you see one of your customers going to Universal instead of, that normally goes to Disney,
Sure.
float this idea to them and see if they could get them back on Disney property.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Was there anything? I mean, I saw. Let's try to review all of. We probably should have written this down. All the reactions or the hot takes about this. The cost, pricing out the middle class. I think Disney's doing that other ways. This is not it. Making things too complicated. Len Testa joked about this today, but I didn't agree with. His joke was funny, but I don't think he meant it seriously.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's making anything more complicated. And I don't think this is going to have an impact in the parks, even if it was offered to anybody and everybody. I still don't think.
I just think people feel like it's being shoved in their face when Universal announces this great new park and all this new things, and the hotel is at lower than expected pricing, and kind of everything sort of positive over there. And then Disney quote unquote counters. The news came out almost the same day with this pass that's super expensive and clearly targeted at the quote unquote rich. And it just feels that they're not reading the room, for lack of a better putting it.
So we'll find out next year whether or not who has the better.
I do think over time, assuming this sticks around and it stays as what Disney says, it's just for a small portion of people, just for blah, blah, blah. People won't even talk about it anymore because it'll be like VIP tours. They know it exists. They know it's not for them. It doesn't impact them, and it is what it is. But I think just with the series of news that has come from Disney, and in the same week as Epic announces the Universal announces about Epic, right. I think it just stands out to people.
I think what's going to happen is going to be released. No one's going to know that it happened. You're going to have. I was listening. I heard a blip on a YouTube short from WWNT News Today. And Corliss was saying, I already booked a room at a deluxe and I'm going to get this to test it. My last question, and I thought we were going to be short on time or long on time, and we're short on time. If you were to have this at Magic Kingdom, what would your touring style be like? I mean, I think it's useless at almost all the other parks anyway. It wouldn't really affect the way you do things, but at Magic Kingdom, it would. How would you use this at Magic Kingdom?
So I wouldn't bother rope dropping because I don't need to wake up early. I kind of get there when I wanted, mid-morning, something like that. And I'd probably just pick one direction and go clockwise, or kind of figure out where I was going to do lunch and do half the park to get to that part, and kind of come around and make sure I have time to see fireworks. I think that's the beauty of this, is that if you have this, it's easy. You can kind of just, as you get to an attraction, do it. So I think I would just do it that way. if I'm getting this, I'm sure all the vloggers and stuff, you'll see all these reports like how quick could we do every single attraction and stuff like that.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't do that. Obviously I would try to hit as many as I could, if not all of them. But I wouldn't be racing from attraction to attraction. The point of this, I think, if for me to enjoy it, it would be to take things easy and not have to look at my phone or a schedule or anything like that. Just say, we're going this way, and as we get to a ride, we'll do it.
And if that takes 3 hours or it takes 8 hours, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing to keep in mind too, and that's why I mentioned it with the VIP tours, how you really do just skip the line with those. This just gets you into the lightning lane. Some of the lightning lanes can still take you 20 minutes. Yeah. So it's, when you have 20 rides or whatever, it's eligible at Magic Kingdom. It's going to take you a good chunk of the day, even with this, to do all the rides.
No, I agree. And I think we can come up with ways how that would work. You already talked about Epcot being able to stroll and not having to backtrack all over the place, because that's what really gets you and kills your park time, is going from like you're at Soarin' and I'm like, oh, my Remy's is up, and you got to walk all the way down to France. Like, oh, my Guardians virtual queue is up. Let's walk all the way over there. And of course, now you've walked like 10 miles.
And then we had lunch at Via Napoli, so we got to walk
all the way back. So I think that definitely is interesting, an interesting aspect for Epcot. Hollywood Studios is a little different. I think it's wasted only because it's a compact park and there's not much. Like, I don't think it holds value other than maybe getting on like 4 rides, and everything else probably the wait times aren't as long.
I know. Like when we went there, like it was there are a couple the multipass that are a little tricky to get. It's hard to get all of them in one day. Sure. So this is just less stress and stuff like that. And obviously, if a ride goes down or something like that, you don't have to worry about it as much. But yeah.
All right. Before we get on to our DVC engagement, I just had a list of quick hits. Phil claimed all the stories for today as far as his topics he wanted to discuss. Some quick hits I just want to show out there, guys, make you guys kind of aware, but they're not really worth more than like a 2-minute conversation, if at all. Walt Disney Company has announced the appointment of James P. Gorman as the new chairman of the board, effective January 2nd, 2025. Gorman, who is currently executive chairman of Morgan Stanley, will succeed Mark G. Parker following his departure from the Disney board after 9 years of service. This guy is basically right now heading the search for the new CEO. He mentioned in the press release that new CEO is expected to be announced early 2026. Iger's contract ends at the end of 2026, so there's probably going to be like a 10-month overlap of them working together. So why is this mentioned? Why am I mentioning this? A new CEO may have some input on the direction of the parks. I know one of the quote-unquote insiders at WDW Magic basically alluded to, if it's not being built by the new CEO comes, anything goes as far as continuing or changing direction, right? Yeah. So that's just important. So if you really like Villains and the new CEO comes in and Villains hasn't broken grounds yet, I'd be a little nervous until you hear like confirmation that, we're going forward with the plans, that type of thing.
Yep.
I guess unless it's Josh tomorrow,
right.
And like, he just announced he's not going to cancel the stuff is excitedly announcing T23 this year, right? Disney Hollywood Studios has a new morning entry procedure, which is really great. It's a pre-COVID. It's changes you back to pre-COVID. Basically, allows you to enter the parks an hour before the open, so you can kind of shop, eat, drink. You're not just kind of corralled at the entrance.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that all guests, whether you have an early entry or not, can get through those initial gates and, like you said, get your coffee and stuff like that. It's just that if you have early entry, then you can get further down the paths to where the rides are. It's
basically Magic Kingdom rules.
Yep, it's basically. I think all the other parks already run like that to some extent.
Yep. So Joe Rohde had a bunch of posts on Instagram. If you're in the parks and you might want to stop by Restaurantosaurus, Joe has some original art pieces in there, some really big giant pictures. I've never really walked through there checking out the art, specifically. So if you're in there, go take a look. He was posting that, he's going to take some extra pictures because you never know when those things are going. Those things are going to be going probably by April next year.
Yep.
So see. There's new Magic Band interactions at different stage shows. So if you like that sort of thing, go check that out. I like, Phil, you put this in there. Listen to Disney Dish. Len mentioned, and for all of you Boneyard fans, there's something that has yet to be announced that will make you happy. So I'm assuming they're converting the playground into tropical.
Yeah, which is what's I hope so, because it seemed like there was nothing indicating that in the concept art, and some people were saying like, oh well, I think I forget it was DSNY did the overlay and it made it look like the carousel is where the boneyard is and stuff like that, and I was always hoping that he was incorrect. He assured me that was the case, but I guess we'll find out. So I think those areas are nice to have. I know I will say I have some nostalgic feelings towards that. I have some really positive memories of my kids in there one time when Pluto came by and he led my kids around hunting for bones and stuff like that. So there's, I might be a little biased, but I think there's room for things like that in the parks, and so I don't want it just gone.
I've never been in there. I'm going to make a point of going in there. In my
your kids are maybe getting a little old for it.
Too old for that. But I like this, and just a public service announcement for everybody. Concept art doesn't mean exactly what they're doing. So as you're like digging through the concept art of Villains or Cars Land, there's always room for differences.
Yeah, don't get too hung up on anyone else.
Don't go crazy. Unless you make videos for a living where that's what you do to get views, right? So,
it's always fun to do armchair.
Oh yeah, I was going to say. I appreciate Jack
on
and his videos on DSNY. I mean, I love those things.
Yeah.
But again, he knows that everything is not final until you see permits and prints, right? All right. So again, reminder of our social media accounts: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our YouTube channel at the DBC Pod. And I think we have time, about 10 minutes, Phil. We can do our DBC engagement for last week.
Yep.
The topic was a top 5 bucket list for Walt Disney World. What are the top 5 things you've never done at Disney World that we'd love to do? Phil, I'm going to go through mine because I think I stole basically all of them for yours for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
or at least a couple of them.
These aren't ordered in a line in any kind of like, I would rather do this versus this. Is just the first 5 that I like. One is to stay at a Crescent Lake resort. They're quite pricey, especially for a family of 5. So Yacht and Beach or the Boardwalk. I would really love that. And definitely not go to number 2 is definitely not the Cake Bake Shop. So number 2, even if I had all the money, like this seems ridiculous to me. The second one is Keys to the Kingdom tour. I'm hitting refresh on a daily basis to see if I can get one of these. I don't think I will. But I would love to do something like that. Not with the kids, but with my wife, so we can spend maybe when the kids are older, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think you have to be 16 or something to do it.
Is there an age?
There is one for that one because you go any of the tours where you go backstage. There is a age limit because they don't want to quote unquote spoil the magic.
So number 3 is Festival of the Arts. I haven't been to all the festivals, and that's the one I heard really good things about, and I like watching and different views of that. So I've never been there for that. Number 4, I think it's on almost everybody's list, is I want to hit Victoria and Albert's. I love good food, so I would love to be able to do that. And the 5th one is I'm still smacking myself for not ever having done this. I came close once, and it was COVID that canceled the trip that I was going to do this on. It was the Hoop-Dee-Doo review. I brought this up to my wife. Do you want to do the Hoop-Dee-Doo review? She's like, no, I have no interest. So she's a vegetarian and she doesn't drink. So that kind of defeats the purpose of like all that fried chicken and
all you can drink.
Yeah. So it doesn't really work out. But one day we'll get there. Phil, what are your 5?
So I tried to not repeat. I definitely think Keys to the Kingdom would be on mine, but I didn't know. So there are some other tours I want to do. Specifically at Animal Kingdom, I want to do the Wild Africa Trek tour and also the Savor the Savannah tour.
See, I got, when I've been refreshing all these tours, like the only one that I got was Caring for Giants, which I'm looking forward to, and it's cheap. It's like $30 a person, right? So it's going to be fun. It's an hour. I was hoping I can get Savor this event. I know Wild African Trek looks super awesome and fun, but there's something about going through some tours and then sitting down and drinking a glass of wine.
Well, especially for a parents only trip, I think that's like a perfect thing for it. Yeah. One thing I want to do is a Skyliner bar crawl. I've done monorail versions, but I've never done a Skyliner version. I also want to stay at a Crescent Lake Resort. I added this, what I specifically want to do, like a beach club and Epcot heavy trip where I go for like, say, a week and we do like 4 park days and we're at Epcot almost every day. I definitely had some FOMO or jealousy feelings. And, when Matt talks about some of his trips and they're staying at the beach club and he just pops over to Epcot for breakfast and stuff like that. Like I kind of want to do a trip like that. I want to eat at Takumite. That's probably another one that I would do on a parents only trip.
Yep.
That looks like a kind of right up our alley and something unique. And then similar to the Crescent Lake one I mentioned, I want to do a holiday focused trip. We've only gone during the holidays like once, and it was more for my son's birthday. We didn't really do all the holiday stuff, but go like heavy holidays, like stay at Wilderness Lodge, like do all the holiday parties, like kind of like a really intense holiday themed trip. So that's the fifth one I had.
We did that last year, and I'm still kicking myself in the butt for not going to Wilderness Lodge because that's on my bucket list. I didn't put it up there just because I would cry myself to sleep tonight for remembering not doing that. But a holiday focus trip is really awesome. We did like the Christmas tree crawl at Disney Springs. We did obviously the Christmas party. We didn't do Jollywood Nights, but like we did like the gingerbread house at Grand Flow. It's really I really like it. I definitely want. It's not something we want to do every year. We've done it 2 years in a row. Where like we're kind of good for a couple of years now, but it's definitely worth kind of doing down the road. Maybe eventually when you finally consider it, your eldest daughter will have a job and she can pay for herself.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah,
yes, would be nice, right? Yeah, one can dream. All right, I'm just going to run through some of these real quick. So we're hitting the hour. Mama of 6. VIP tour, the not so scary Halloween party. I think that's one everyone should kind of knock off eventually. At least the 2 Magic Kingdom parties are definitely worth doing at least once. Typhoon Lagoon Food and Wine Festival. That's another one that I'm surprised. But then again, Mama of 6 has got a lot of kids, so it's kind of tough to do.
I think just time when they can travel. I think they go in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. Like that. Yep. And stay at a Skyliner resort, which I think is a crime. Everybody should stay at a Skyliner resort because it's my favorite mode of transportation, but I am just biased. Herdomaniac is food and resort focused here, staying at an All-Stars resort. Like, I don't know why that is on his bucket list, but he stays at some of the best resorts on property.
I guess just to check it out and see, like,
I guess so.
What is the other end of the spectrum?
Yeah. Do any holiday party. Again, he's not a very heavy park person. That's a hefty price ticket for somebody that does like that. Eating table service at, or is that I'm assuming that's table service.
I think it's table service at Animal Kingdom. Yeah.
Yep. Rent any watercraft. I know my sister, and brother-in-law and their family rented a boat tour for the fireworks last time they went last year. And do any water park. I should have put water park on my bucket list. Are they doing the promo for water parks all the way through July of next year? Or is that just still the first half of next year?
No, I think it's all of. I think it's like I understood it to be like this is a promo going forward, just starting in 2025.
Interesting. I have to do some planning around that. Maybe
that'd be for your arrival day. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do something like that. That'd be fun. Lumpy says stay at a DVC Grand Villa, counting the cabins at Fort Wilderness. Do any specialty tour at any park. I'm starting to knock those ones out. I've got the cheapest one first, I guess. Any holiday party also. Ride the Lily Bell. And ride any monorail nose cone. I guess he has to go out to Disneyland.
Yeah, I was going to say the last 2 I think are Disneyland specific.
Yes, so he's out there. New member of the community, Vi Queen. Thank you for joining. She joined last week, and basically we guilted her into
contributing
because we shouted out her name last week, so she felt guilty. So I'm going to make you feel guilty again. Vi Queen, here's another shout out. We hope you do the DBC engagement again this week. So number 1 on her list is Fantasmic. Her family's not big into nighttime shows, and I think I responded with like she's the anti Matt Beto who just only wants to do nighttime shows. Stay at a DVC Grand Villa. Get walked off a ride. I mean, I think that chances of that happening to you are getting higher and higher every single day.
That's true.
Number 4 is the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular, which I think is very easy to like walk past and not do.
Yeah,
but it's a major show.
It's an interesting one because it's not like obviously everyone can just go to it, but it's not short. There's only a certain number each day. Like you have to kind of plan to do it. You can't, like you said, it's not just something you can walk by and like, oh hey, let's check this out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one to get to without planning. And the last one is achieve Galactic Hero status in Buzz Lightyear. This is a good bucket list.
It is really.
I like number 5.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you have to dedicate you need to be like an annual pass holder and just go there and like practice.
Yeah.
Just do that type of thing. That's tough to do. I tried trying to get a high score by like watching the day before we went to Magic Kingdom, and I'm like I was not ready whatsoever. I think my gun was broken that day too. Janelle says, for us, since we've been there so many times, I'm not sure what 5 things are, what we would do. We haven't ever done, but here's a shortened list. The first one would be Keys to the Kingdom, dining with an Imagineer. This one's really cool. I've known some people that have done that. Always staying at one of the treehouse suites. I think that's really, really cool. A VIP tour. I mean, I don't know if I would like to do a VIP tour. I'd rather do Keys to the Kingdom. That's just kind of that type of thing.
Like, I feel like it's one of those things. If somebody invited me, I'd be happy to do one, but there's just so many other things I'd rather spend money on.
Well, I mean, like even if money was infinite,
Yeah.
I don't like having like a butler, servant, tour guide that's going to do like nitty gritty. Like that makes me feel uncomfortable. Right?
Yeah. I know there's other experiences like that. Like on some of the cruise ships, there's like if you certain cabins, you get a butler and stuff like that. And so I've talked to some people and they're like, yeah, it's really like I was nervous. I didn't like really know what to use. They're like, by the end of the trip, I was like totally comfortable and everything like that. So I think it's one of those things you get used to it once you have it.
I suppose. But I guess that says good things about us that if we find that awkward, but
yeah.
Maybe we easily just get used to the good life.
Exactly.
Guess, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? The last one she says, I don't include things that don't really exist but should. And I think this is this one of our DVC?
It's one of the options. So we'll see.
Okay, so maybe we'll pick that one. I would love to be in any park after they close and watch what really happens when all the guests are gone. I love behind the scenes stuff. Like it's like dirty jobs, but not exactly dirty because I don't think it's a dirty job. Well, maybe throwing out the trash, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say part of it is, I'm sure.
Yeah. Wheezy had a couple here, stayed at all the Disney World hotels, Disney World Holiday Party, which he's going to do this year, which is nice. Behind the scenes tours, Caring for Giants, etc. Cinderella's Royal Table, done that a few times. That the luster on that one wears off after once or twice. Blizzard Beach and mini golf. I've never done mini golf, but I don't know if that's on any of my lists to do.
We've done it once.
My family's really bad at mini golf because half the kids don't know what they're doing and just start hitting the ball around. My wife is very competitive and starts making sure
it's not a good combination.
It's just I get frustrated. Can't we just play golf and play it the right way? And everybody's wandering around, so it's just a cluster. Doxy says stay at the Grand Floridian VIP tour, eat at every restaurant at Walt Disney World. Now, this is something I would do. I would have a massive checklist and just check.
Well, there is a thing.
Right?
I don't know if it's separate from that. I know people tracked it on the Diz boards, but it's called the Golden Spoon. And the idea was if you ate at every restaurant, you got to have the golden spoon, but they would keep track of. There was a way to keep track of it. Yeah.
That would be something I would definitely do. Water parks, she says. And ride every ride. She's ridden everything all but Terror of Terror. So, I mean, I still try to check things off. There's still things that I haven't done at the parks. And I've got a list of them that I'm going to try to knock out if we have time this go around. TL Madden, stayed at every Disney World resort, Keys to the Kingdom, go to all 4 parks in one day. I did that 2 years ago, and it's super, super fun. I recommend to anybody that has hoppers and the energy to do it without little kids. It's very difficult with little kids to at least try that once. It's really, really fun. Go to one of the water parks. And what's this last one, Phil?
So pre-park opening breakfast. I don't think they do that anymore, though. That was a pre-COVID thing where you could get into the parks earlier if you had they would do park dining reservations at some of the restaurants. Say the park opened at 9, you could get in as early as 8. You got to go through an empty park and do that sort of thing. They were great. We did them at Akershus and a few others, but they don't.
I think Crystal Palace had that also, right, early on. So appreciate everybody for jumping in. I think that was a really good engagement. So thank you very much. In fact, Twin, you better be answering this question for next week. And what are some things that don't exist but should? Right. I don't know if you want to give us a top 3. If you can think of one, just give us one. But if you got like 5, give us 5. We put them in a list, put them in the Discord channel, and let us know.
And I think the idea is something that has never existed. It's not saying like, oh, Magical Express should exist again. Like,
no, you can't put again at the end of the statement. To make it valid. If you could put again on there and it makes sense, it's not a proper answer. This is something that you have invented in your brain. That should happen, and it has to be realistic, right? It's not like they need to put a Skyliner attached to Cinderella's castle, right? Like that's not going to actually happen. These should be viable things that should happen, right?
Yep.
Maybe different type of tours, maybe different type of restaurants, maybe a different type of experience or something else like that. And I don't think if somebody puts that they should build a 5th gate, that is also not valid for that one because that's a boring answer. And also, they're not going to build a 5th gate. Anything else we forgot, Phil, or I forgot, Phil, that I need to mention? Or are we good to go?
I think we are good to go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's call it done.
Call it done. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Leave a comment for the algorithm. With that being said, everybody, have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Take care, everyone.